Welcome to class, everyone. Grab a seat, settle in. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's lecture. We're going to take a deep dive into one of the most radical, intellectually provoking texts in the entire history of Western thought, the 10th book of Plato's Republic. Now, don't worry, this isn't going to be some dry, dusty, ancient history lesson. Not at all. Today, we are looking at the ultimate showdown between cold, logical reason, logos, and the incredibly powerful force of illusion that has frankly ruled human imagination for millennia. We're going to see how the exact ancient manipulation tactics that Plato fought against are literally operating on the screen right at your fingertips today. Sound good? Let's get started. Here is our syllabus, our roadmap for today. We'll start with the clash of logos and illusion, then move into the famous metaphor of the three beds. After that, we'll look at the digital compression of reality, the immunity of the human soul, the epic myth of and finally, wrap up with your cosmic choice.
All right, part 1, the clash of logos and illusion. Let's look at this ancient conflict.
Plato kicks off this book with a conflict as old as time. And listen, this is not just some academic debate about whether poems sound pretty. It's a fundamental war between cold, rational analysis and emotional narrative marketing that is specifically designed to hook you. The absolute key concept we need to understand here is mimesis. In the ancient world, this meant the art of imitation. Think Homer's epic poetry. But Plato isn't criticizing Homer for a lack of talent. Oh no, he criticizes mimesis because it targets our absolute worst, most irrational impulses. It completely paralyzes our reason. To put it in perspective for you, imagine that ancient poetry was to Plato exactly what social media algorithms are to us today. It's a system built to bypass your logic, hijack your emotions, and keep you comfortably locked inside a modern digital cave.
Moving on to part 2, the metaphor of the three beds. We really need to unpack these levels of existence.
To expose how this illusion works, Plato uses this absolutely brilliant analytical tool. We're going to slow down for a second here, because this is where Plato totally deconstructs how we view our daily reality. He breaks existence down into 3 steps of, well, ontological degradation. At the very top, step 1, you have the idea. In today's terms, think of this as the pure, perfect mathematical algorithm created by God. Then, in step 2, a craftsman comes along and builds a physical bed imitating that idea. Imagine this like the physical hardware, maybe a brand new monitor fresh off the assembly line. It's tangible, but it's already just a copy. Finally, step 3, we have the artist, the painter. The painter doesn't copy the original perfect code. No, he just copies the superficial, perspective-based appearance of that physical monitor from one specific angle. It's like taking a highly compressed JPEG screenshot. The artist creates an illusion that is 3 whole degrees removed from the actual truth. The painter doesn't even know how the bed works. They're just sliding right across the superficial texture of reality.
Which brings us right to part 3, the digital compression of reality. Let's look at Plato in the 21st century. Okay, so let's see what happens when we take Plato's psychopolitical fears from antiquity and drop them right into our modern tech landscape. It's kind of wild how little human nature has actually changed. Let's break down this table. That ancient mimesis, that distorting copy mechanism, that's today's generative AI and AR filters. Those famous shadows on the cave wall Plato talked about, those are literally your personalized algorithmic feeds, illusory images that you mistake for reality, trapping you inside a post-truth bubble. And who are the Homers of our time? The influencers, the content creators. They use the exact same tricks to spike your emotions and maximize engagement. And the shadow makers, the people actually pulling the strings in the cave, those are massive tech corporations and programmers designing the architecture of your attention for pure profit. So here is the crucial takeaway, that ancient magic of mimesis has been rationalized and fully weaponized using our metadata. And, actually, it's worse now. Aristotle believed a good story gave you catharsis, an emotional release. But our modern digital mimesis, it does the exact opposite. It's a permanent simulation with zero resolution. You are just endlessly bombarded with superficial stimuli. You're forced into this constant state of reaction, which makes deep, critical reflection pretty much impossible. Ultimately, it traps you in a state of chronic, algorithmic overstimulation.
Let's transition to part 4, the immunity of the human soul. How do we find what's actually real?
All right, if all this sensory, digital stuff around us is basically just a cheap, compressed copy filled with falsehoods, we have to ask ourselves, what's actually real? I want to pose a direct, Socratic question to you. If sensory reality is a falsehood, what within us is permanent? What can actually resist this omnipresent illusion and the sheer passage of time? Well, this is exactly where Plato drops his incredibly original proof for the immortality and indestructibility of human consciousness. Check out the logic of this argument. It's fascinating. Plato says that everything in the world has a specific evil that destroys it. For example, rust is the specific evil for iron. A physical disease is the specific evil for our biological bodies, right? So what's the specific evil for the human soul? Plato says it's moral vice, things like injustice, cowardice, ignorance. And here is the brilliant twist. Since this internal moral evil cannot physically kill the soul, I mean, we see tyrants and deeply corrupt people walking around perfectly alive and biologically healthy every day, it means the soul itself simply cannot be destroyed. If its own intrinsic disease can't kill it, no external factor is going to be able to do it either. Therefore, the human soul has to be absolutely indestructible and eternal.
This perfectly sets up Part 5, the myth of the grand eschatological finale.
Since he's established that the soul is eternal, Plato now leads us to this breathtaking climax, the myth that crowns his whole concept of justice. The story of a fallen soldier, isn't just a fairy tale. Think of it as a rigorous mathematical report on the mechanics of the afterlife. It's like he's a beta tester for the cosmos. Dies in battle on day 1. But on day 12, he miraculously wakes up on his own funeral pyre as a messenger, sent back to explain the rules of the other side. He describes a massive tribunal. Just souls go on a 1,000-year journey of pure geometric joy, while the wicked repay their crimes tenfold. After this massive 1,000-year period of expiation, on day 10-12, they finally arrive at the very center of the universe.
And what's at the center? Eris describes what he calls the spindle of necessity. Honestly, you can just picture it as a massive cosmic server. Its axis is forged from indestructible steel, holding together 8 concentric planetary orbits. Sitting on each orbit is a siren, and she's generating this one perfectly tuned note, all of them blending together to create the ultimate harmony of the spheres. And running this entire back-end operation, the 3 fates. They are basically the cosmic programmers maintaining the grand system. And it's right here, at their feet, that the absolute most dramatic moment of our entire existence happens.
Which brings us to our final section, your cosmic choice, the lottery of lives.
Right before the souls choose their next lives on Earth, one of the fates steps up and announces something incredibly heavy. She says, "The choice is yours, God is blameless." Just let that sink in for a second. The cosmos takes the entire weight of your destiny and drops it squarely on your shoulders. It is an absolute, terrifying level of individual responsibility. You can't excuse your bad choices by complaining that the gods or demons or the algorithms were unfair to you.
This is where Plato hits us with an invaluable lesson about the difference between superficial appearances and actual depth. Watches a soul step up who, in its previous life, was good just out of habit. They just had conformist civic virtue and blindly followed the rules. Because they lack true critical thinking, they immediately fall for the illusion. They see the flashy, external splendor of a tyrant's life and excitedly choose it. Only later do they realize the fine print involves unimaginable horrors, like devouring their own children. And what do? They hysterically blame everyone else. But souls armed with authentic philosophical virtue, they act totally differently. Look at Odysseus. He doesn't go for the shiny object. He critically and cautiously examines the lots, rejects all the glamour, and gratefully picks the humble, quiet life of a private, ordinary man. He gets it. Unreflective morality, just doing what society says, is not enough. It's just a mask that completely falls apart during your very first serious test.
At the very end of the journey, every soul has to drink from the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, erasing all memory of the cosmos before they are born again. Only was allowed to remember, so he could bring this monumental warning back to us. So students, as we wrap up today's lecture, I want to leave you with one supreme question to chew on. Are you practicing authentic philosophy and critically analyzing the world around you? Can you actually defend your own intellectual sovereignty? Or are you just voluntarily drinking from the river Lethe, passively absorbing whatever the digital algorithms dictate, letting them shape every single aspect of your reality? The choice, remember, belongs entirely to you. Thank you so much for your attention today. Think deeply on this, and I'll see you all in our next class.